Hello and welcome to the 206 Podcast. I am your host, Mark Morin, coming to you from Seattle, Washington. This interview is part of my coverage of the 2021 Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. Today, I'm speaking with actress and singer Haven Everly, whose movie, The Girl Who Left Home, has been winning awards at festivals all over the country. Haven, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me. It's my pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for taking the time. Now, The Girl Who Left Home, which was written and directed by Mallory Ortega, is a comedy, it's a drama, it's a musical, and it's very much a Filipino-American story, which makes this a very unique experience for moviegoers. So to start out, give me your take on what the story is. What did you think when you first read the script, and how did you first become involved with the project?
Yeah, so the story is pretty much what you said. It's a Filipino-American feature film that also has music incorporated in it. And it's about a girl named Christine, who I play. And she just lands her biggest role ever in her life. She moves away from her home and she starts her career in singing and acting. She books a big performance or a big stage play. And however, her dad passes away. So it starts on the top of the film, like something, yes, it's kind of crazy. So her dad passes away, so she has to go back home with a lot of unfinished business there. And so you see just throughout the entire film, she's helping her family cope, grieve, and maintain a restaurant that's kind of losing its business with her mom grieving and things like that. And so she throughout the film, she's deciding whether or not she wants to stay and help support her family or leave to continue to pursue her dreams and goals. So so that's the synopsis of the film. I found out about the film just through my manager at the time. I got an audition on in my email, and I read the script. And when I tell you, I had such a visceral, I read it and I cried because there wasn't anything that I've ever read before or even watched before that represented Filipino-American stories and had music incorporated in it. And there was eerie connections with the character and me personally that I felt so in tune with. It was almost kind of magical. And I told my manager, I was like, if I don't book the lead, I want to just be in it because I want to be a part of this movement. I want to support what the director's trying to do. And it's a musical. Like that's my bread and butter. I love singing and I love, of course, acting, but this was like the added element to it. And so I went through the entire audition process. I think it was like 3 auditions. It started on a self-tape, and in the self-tape I had to sing, I had to do 2 scenes, and then I had to talk a little bit about myself. Oh, wow. And then they started narrowing it down. Eventually I had an audition with the director and the casting director. So I had an audition with Angela, the casting director, and Mallory Ortega, the writer, director, producer. And I was so nervous. I just remember being like, okay, like walking around the whole building and being like, okay, I'm just going to do my best. I can only do so much, and I'm just going to give it my all. And then I think a month or a few months later, I found out that I booked it. So that's been my whole process.
No, that's amazing. So it sounds like right from the very beginning, you felt a part of this story, and then that just kind of expanded from there as you moved along the process.
Yes, yeah. And it's so interesting because throughout the whole time of creating the film, all of us continued that feeling of connection and that feeling of magic still kept continue and grow. And we still feel that same way today. We still are really close, the entire crew and cast. So there's definitely something magical about the whole experience.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, we had mentioned a little bit about the Filipino culture and those aspects of the movie. One of the things you had mentioned, the restaurant, the family restaurant. Now, I have to ask you, because watching the movie, there's so much good, amazing looking food. So how much of the food did you actually get to eat while filming at that restaurant? Everything just looked amazing.
That is one of the best parts of shooting a Filipino-American film. That was crafty for us. We literally ate, well, I don't eat meat anymore, but we ate the lechon, we ate the pancit. Mallory's mom actually owned that restaurant at the time. Okay. And so that's what we ate. She was making the food as we were shooting. And so after Mallory would say cut, we would go and we'd eat the food. It was fresh. Yeah. And so we were kind of spoiled in that way. It felt like a Filipino party every day shooting the film.
Oh, that's amazing. Now, I also have to ask you about working with your castmates, especially Emmy Colagato and Paolo Montalban. I imagine it was a lot of fun on set, especially with those two in particular.
It was such an honor. I have to admit, at first I was super intimidated. This was the first film that I was playing the lead in, and obviously I knew both Emmy and Paolo from the work they've done. They're such
Right.
OGs in the acting world, especially being Filipino. And I was just admired them so much as artists. So when I got to work alongside them, I was like, I felt so much pressure, but they were actually so. As an actor, sometimes you get casted with people who are very, kind of introspective, which is so great, but also it's you have to kind of independently work on your own. And for them, they were so giving. They were receptive to what I was choosing, and we outside of shooting, Emmy and I would be in our hotel room, like rehearsing our scenes,
Oh, wow.
and we met from the film itself, and our relationship just grew, like kept growing and growing, like I said, and Paolo too. So we're all very close, even to this day. And so, I mean, that was one of the best things about the film, is that I built so many great friendships that I think are going to last forever. So
Oh, that's amazing. So not just on set, but just in everyday life as well. That's amazing.
yeah, it's been such an honor.
Oh, that's great. Now, this was your first feature film, and it was also Mallory's first feature film as a director, as a producer, as a writer. So, what was the biggest thing you learned from making this movie?
I learned that making a movie has so many moving parts, and it's a team effort.
Right.
Really, I think even Mallory, when we talk about it, she had because she was such a bulldozer. She was the one that would wrote, directed, produced it. She worked on it for years to like raise the funds to create her vision. And even she felt like toward the end that it's a synergistic concept. It takes a bunch of people to create its own entity, essentially, right?
Right.
So when being the lead of the film, I felt a lot of pressure, like I said in the beginning, and so I realized throughout the process, though, that it's a team effort. That at the end of the day, I'm just one part of the whole big picture, and this big picture is going to create its own masterpiece. And to go with the flow is half the journey. So it's the balance of learning to do your part, learning to do your best, but also let the magic kind of take its course and see what comes out of it.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. Now, is there anyone that you drew inspiration from to help bring Christine to life?
Honestly, I did a lot of substitution as an actor. So there's so many similarities that Christine and I have, but there's also huge differences. I come from being the youngest in my family, and I'm a very emotionally, I'm an actor, so I'm very sensitive, I'm very open, and I'm
Yeah.
very, I'm able to easily express my feelings. With Christine, she's very guarded. She's an only
Mhm.
child. She feels obligated to raise her family in a place of stability. And so there's some similarities I can feel from that, but I needed to learn how to build that wall, because for her grieving process is so different from me. If I'm going through some sort of grief, I reach out. I cry. I tell
Mhm.
people how I feel. That's my instinctive response to grief. Whereas she harbors and she holds it in.
Mhm.
And so I drew a lot of inspiration from actually my oldest sister, whose name is Christine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, because she also too, there's that power of being the oldest, but also being like guarded and
Mhm.
feeling like I'm obligated to show face, and I'm obligated to be strong throughout this process. And so I used a lot of my relatives because I know them. I know them so clearly. And as an actor, that's so helpful to be able to substitute in that way. And so I was able to draw inspiration from people I knew personally to even like understand their nuances, their thought processes, to see how they would respond to these given circumstances.
Right. Oh, thank you for explaining that. That's great. Now,
Yeah.
Haven, who inspires you that's not a filmmaker?
Ooh, who inspires me? Honestly, it's my parents,
Mm.
and it's the people that the like little kids that'll like respond even on my social media, who, I come from, I think for a lot of Filipino Asian Americans in general, we weren't very represented here in the United States. And so I feel like kind of like part of this movement of having to open those doors, break down those barriers.
Right.
And so I do it more so for the girls who are like me, who had these dreams and goals and didn't really have anyone to really aspire to. There's very like, I can count them in one hand, right?
Right,
Like
right.
all the women who had built successful careers in this kind of industry. And so I always draw inspiration when things get tough. I find my purpose of, well, I'm here to inspire. I'm here to show other people that you can do what you want to do, and you can also achieve what you've always wanted to dream of. So, or you've always dreamt of. So.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be an interesting feeling knowing, like you just mentioned, that you're becoming part of that representation that's going to lead, to the young girls will watch the movie and say, hey, that's something I can do. So is that something you were mindful of while making the movie, or where does that into your headspace?
Oh, definitely. I think in everything that I do, it's my biggest, I always tell people who want to do this, I always say, like, have a strong why. That's the big, like, why do you do this? And my purpose of it all is to inspire and also to help motivate the people who feel like, oh man, but I've never seen myself in this kind of dynamic or in this film or in, how do I know I could even do it? And there's power in representation. There truly is power. And so when they see people who might, resemble them, it feels a lot more possible. And I always like revisit like who, I grew up watching a lot of like fighting films like Jackie Chan, Jet Li,
Right.
and I think a huge part of that was like I wanted to feel like a superhero, but there were just very few, like those were like the handful of people that I could draw from. Lucy Liu, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
And she was also a fighter, but there was nothing really outside of that kind of dynamic. There wasn't a girl who had parents and who wanted to sing, like there wasn't any of that kind of story that looked, that I could draw from. So that's what I hope I can bring to the future generations.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Now, going back to the movie and being on set, and we mentioned some of the cultural representations. I know karaoke is a big part of the culture, and that was very well represented in the movie. So can you talk about that a little bit of, karaoke being in the movie, and then also just some of the stuff like when you go to the house after you travel back home, just so many little details. Can you expand on some of those things?
Yeah, I think that's part of Mallory's genius. I think that she wanted to show things that are unorthodox, right? Like being able to go to a bar with your mom, right? Your immigrant mom. That's not normal for Filipino American, for Asian American, for a lot of people in general. But then she incorporated something super universal, which is karaoke, especially in our culture. And I think what it does is that it kind of helps you travel and see like, oh, wow, this is just her life. This is what she does. This is what they do. They go to karaoke. They have to do the seventh prayer during, this is just her normal. And so you see that. So it's not just about the culture, but it's you're also traveling along the experiences of Christine as in her own reality.
Right.
So it was so fun though, because it felt so relatable. Again, like it's super relatable for Emmy and for me, and to be able to go, okay, come on, let's go sing. Let's go, we have our number, like 2551, like put it, disc jockey, play the song, like classic. So it's just part of our culture to do that. And so I love that she was able to incorporate that.
No, that's great. Yeah. Now, speaking of singing, you have a strong presence on social media. You mentioned like TikTok and YouTube, where you do a lot of singing. And I have to say, your voice is just amazing. So when I watch your videos and watching the movie, I'm just like blown away by what you're able to do. Do you have that childhood moment where you decided that singing and performing was something that you wanted to do and even could do as a career?
Oh, definitely. Well, I come from a family of singers. My parents were professional singers. That's how they met. My dad had a DJ business. My sisters and I were a pop group since I was like 5. We were we were shopped by major labels. Like that was my lifestyle, like my childhood, my upbringing. And I I watched Selena almost every day
Oh
of my
my
life.
gosh. Love that movie. Amazing movie.
She was my closest inspiration, right? Like,
Really? Okay.
yeah, she grew up in a Mexican American household,
Yeah.
and her family and her sang, and her dad was really strict about performance. They resembled so much of my upbringing that I wanted to be like her. And
Wow.
she was a catalyst for Mexican Americans in the United States, like
Yeah.
bringing her Tejano music and all of that in the forefront, but also crossing over. And I was just like, wow, like there's no one like that for us in my culture. But I love what she did. Like I sang all these Spanish songs growing up, and I didn't know what I was saying, but I was like, I want to be like Selena, And so she has been always my like huge inspiration. And so when I watched that movie almost every day, I was like, I want to do that. That was like my biggest dream. So, but yeah, so singing was just part of what we did. And then acting actually came later. That was when my sisters and I decided that we didn't want to be a singing group anymore. I started taking acting classes, and then I was like, no, this is what I want to do. And then the fact that it was able to like kind of merge in this film, it was such an honor. I'm just so happy.
Oh, that's really cool. So just having that integration is just a natural progression for you. So you could say that you're just naturally born to sing, and no matter what you're doing, right?
I guess. I mean, I love it. I've been doing it for so long, and it was like just something we always did. Like my family, like I said, my family, they're all singers. So I mean, we'd be in the car singing. Even on my TikTok, I try to catch my mom singing.
Yeah, exactly.
So things like that, like it's just a part of what we did. So and then acting came as like the career choice I wanted to make for myself on my own without my family,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so Haven, with that in mind, would it be possible to get a bit of a song from you today during this interview?
Sure, why not?
Not to put you on the spot, but if you don't mind, if you have a song in mind, I don't know if it'd be something from the movie to keep it relevant, or just a go-to song that you have. I'll just give you the stage for a moment.
Yeah, I'll do a go-to.
Okay.
Everyone has to watch the film to hear the great songs from that one. But I'll do a short little go-to. Okay. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he's watching over me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he's watching over me.
That was amazing. Haven, thank you so much for that. We could have ended right there and everyone was more than happy. But I do have a couple more questions. No, but thank you so much for doing that. I really
No problem, Mark. No, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, going back to the movie and the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, The Girl Who Left Home actually had its world premiere at the same film festival almost exactly a year ago. And now it's back, this time for an in-person screening. So Haven, tell me what the film festival experience has been like over the past year with virtual screenings and then transitioning to the theatrical premiere that you had in DC and then now this festival.
It's been so unique. So I used to go to a lot of film festivals as just a viewer, and I was like, oh my gosh, like after doing the film and realizing that we're going to be going through the circuit as an actor, I was like, this is so exciting. Oh my gosh, like I get to watch a film that I was in and I was a part of. And then, the pandemic hit and I was like, okay, how are they going to re-navigate everything?
Yeah.
And I think that although it wasn't like the normal experience, that the expectations that we all had at first, it was still, I just admired everybody who continued to try to push the the movie industry forward, push independent films forward, and we were trying to make the best of the circumstances.
Right.
And so for me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make the best of it. Like, why not? And so it was nice to be able to be in my PJs while I'm doing an interview. And it was nice to be able to be snacking outside of, and so there was benefits of that. And then like also being just in the comfort of my home. But, and I think that it was a lot more expensive because when you're doing something that's in person, there's only a few people that can watch it. But in the other festivals, there were people that were watching it in the comfort of their home in other states. And so it was able to grow in, I think, a way that I feel like it wouldn't have been able to in kind of like the normal setting. But so there were pros and cons, of course, of adjusting to the circumstances. But overall, it was great. I do have to say, when we did have the DC in-person experience, I think all of us were just like, wow, like it felt so good to be able to experience that moment together. And that was like kind of not planned. Like all of us, like we knew about that. We've got the DC, like we made it in that film festival, and kind of all of us showed up. Like of course, like Mallory's, like she was like, if you guys can come, feel free to like come. They're gonna do a Q&A. They would love for you to be there. And all of us came in. All of us showed up, and all of us got to experience that dynamic that we didn't have in the beginning. So, and now having that for the film festival here in LA. This October 1st, I think it's just awesome. I think that the fact that they're doing an encore for us says volumes, right? Like how amazing and how grateful we are to have that opportunity, to try a second time to be able to be seen in theaters. So it's just been such an interesting journey, and I think I'm just like enjoying again like the ride and seeing how the magic itself creates how everything happens in fruition.
No, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I've noticed about film festivals in general is overall there's the people in charge of film festivals have done a great job of adapting, from the time that the pandemic started, when everything just shut down, to then figuring out what can we do, what's possible. That's what I kept seeing over the course of, this, almost 2 years now we're coming up on, amazingly. And to see now a film festival like this one you just mentioned bring you back, knowing that experience is important. That to me is like, thank you. I appreciate them doing that. I'm sure you appreciate them doing that. Just the thought that's put into these different festivals has just been amazing. So is it like, do you have more festival screenings coming up, or do you know what's next for the movie?
I don't, honestly. I kind of like the surprise of it all, but it's really the people, the producers, like I commend them for their hard work and for them moving the film forward, because it's a lot of work. I mean, Mallory is a part of that huge push. So I kind of just wait and hear what happens, and I'm here to support it because I believe in it so much. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's next for it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Now, what would you say to somebody who was in your position, like you had talked about when you first read the script and you auditioned? What would you say to somebody who's in that spot right now?
I would say that, I feel like that's kind of heavy loaded because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get emotional. But I would say to continue to follow your vision.
Yeah. But
also know that you're enough, and know that opportunities will come. I think that that's necessary for any actor, when you have like 100 million auditions, 100 million rejections, that the opportunities are going to come. The opportunities of yes will come, and to continue to believe in yourself, because that's all you really need, right? Everyone else you could just numb all the negative noise and just know that like your belief in yourself is enough.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. I hope somebody in that position does get to hear those words, because I think that's exactly what they should be hearing right now. Thank you for that. Now, any final thoughts on the movie before we wrap things up?
I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting it. And I hope that outside of the Filipino American culture, there's so many elements of the film that I think is universal. It's like the dynamic of the mom and the daughter, grief and acceptance and pursuing your dreams amidst adversity. You know, all of those universal concepts are seen in this film as well. And I hope it resonates with everyone. So I'm really grateful for the people who believe in this film, who's moving this film forward, and I hope that a lot more people can see it soon.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. I believe in the film. I want everybody to see it. So thank you for putting in those terms. Haven, thank you for speaking with me during the festival. Please enjoy the rest of your time, and all the best to you in the future.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. This has been my pleasure.
This is Mark Morin and special guest Haven Everly talking about The Girl Who Left Home, an official selection of the 2021 Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. If you want to learn even more about The Girl Who Left Home, you can listen to my interview with director Mallory Ortega on the podcast. For those watching right now on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to the page, leave a comment, and share on social media. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, share, and you can also leave a review if you're listening on iTunes. Any way you can support the podcast is very much appreciated. You can find every podcast episode and all of my movie reviews, including my review of The Girl Who Left Home, on 2ohsix.com. This is the 2ohsix Podcast. Thank you for your time. Be safe and take care. See you next time.